thing we're going to highlight is that if you have something squared in an equation, like n squared minus 41n plus 264, we have a quadratic or a second degree term because we have an n squared. And when you have an n squared or an x squared, you have a quadratic equation. So I am going to give you one that's possible to solve. I'm going to tell you that I have a number in my head, and I'm going to take that number and square it. Then I am going to subtract. What should I subtract? I'm going to subtract 4 times that number and tell you the answer is equal to 12. What could the number be? Any guesses? Try some mental math guesses. Find a number that doesn't work. I hope you see that 0 doesn't work. Yeah, 0 minus 0, is that 12? No. Let's see how long it takes you to guess until you get an answer that works. A number times by itself minus 4 times that number is equal to 12. 6. Does 6 work? 36 minus 24 works. Excellent. That's not the only answer, though. There's another answer. -2 works. Because -2 squared is positive 4, and -4 times -2 is positive 8. 4 plus 8 is also 12. So we get 2 answers. And what we're going to find out is that when guessing and checking, you guys did pretty good there. I was impressed. When guessing and checking, adding and subtracting makes it somewhat difficult to guess and check. But here, I can rewrite this by moving the 12 over and making one side equal to 0. But adding and subtracting to equal 0 is a little tricky. For example, I'm going to think of 2 numbers in my head right now. Got it. The 2 numbers I have in my head, I added them together, and I got 0. I want you to see if you can guess only one. You just have to guess one of the numbers. What do you think one of the numbers I had in my head is? No, it wasn't 4 billion. Keep guessing. No, it wasn't 0. 4. No, it wasn't 4. It wasn't -10. How long is this going to take you to guess? What do you think? 1. 1? No, it wasn't 1. It wasn't pi. It was okay. Yes. It was 3.8 was one number, and -3.8 was the other number. How long would it take you to guess that?
Quite possibly literally forever.
It could be forever, especially going to a lot of decimal places, it'd be like giving up. Now, if I change adding and subtracting to equal 0, to multiplying to equal 0, I'm going to do another one. I'm going to put 2 numbers in my head. Okay? I've got my 2 numbers. I multiplied them together, and the answer was 0. Can you tell me what one of the numbers is? 0. The other one was 7.92. Okay? But one of them has, if you multiply 2 things together, one of them has to be 0. And this is super important because it's something in mathematics that we call the zero product property. It's so intuitive that if you multiply 2 things and the answer is 0, one of those 2 things has to be 0. There's no other way with other numbers that you can get 0 unless you make a mistake, right? What's 7 times 10? 0. Well, you made a mistake. But, yeah, that doesn't work. So, the zero product property says if I can change something from adding and subtracting to multiplying, then one of them would have to be 0. And the zero product property only works with 0. Right? Because if I say I have two numbers in my head and the answer is 12, then all of a sudden it is difficult to figure out. Right? You might guess 2 and 6, 3 and 4, but you probably, I had 12 and 12 11s. No, 11 12s. No, I had 11 and 12 11s. That's the numbers that I had in my head. You would never guess that. Could be anything if it's anything other than 0, but 0 is important. So what we're going to do is we're going to change this, which is adding and subtracting, to two things that are multiplied together. What would I put in the brackets? What is this called?
Factoring x minus 6 and x plus 2.
X minus 6 and x plus 2. That's factoring. And now I've changed it to multiplying. So I know that one of these has to be 0. It could be this one. If this one is 0, what's x? 6. If this one is 0, what's x? Negative 2. Wow. That's a whole lot better than guessing and checking. So if we have a quadratic equation with an x squared, we're going to need to make one side equal to 0 so we can use the zero product property. And then if we change it to multiplying, which we can do with factoring, then we'll be able to solve. Okay. So now let's go to our first question. First of all, I could have asked this question like this, right? A number squared plus a number is equal to 56. What's the number? And you could guess and check. But if we have the zero product property, because it's already equal to 0, if I can change this to multiplying right here, if I can factor it, well, x squared is easy. It has to be x and x. What about 56? So that my outside and inside make 1. What do you got?
Positive 8 and negative 7.
So 8 and 7 is a good start because it makes my outside and inside possibility of 1. I would need positive 8 to make plus 8x minus 7x to get a plus 1x. Multiply it out, check it. Sure enough, it worked. And now x could be 7 if the second one is 0, and x could be negative 8 if the first one is equal to 0. So this answer has two solutions. And if we check the original question, you probably would have guessed 7 squared, 49 plus 7, 56. That one you might have guessed, but the negative one would have been harder to guess. In B, it looks like they've done the work for us. You see the left side is already factored. But unfortunately, the right side is 22. The factoring only helps us if one side is equal to 0. So unfortunately in this one, I actually have to multiply this all out to begin with. So I would get 3x squared minus 18x plus 1x minus 6 is equal to 22. I would combine my like terms, which would give me 3x squared minus 18, no, minus 17x. And if I bring the 22 over, I would get minus 28 equals 0. So step 1, I have to first get one side equal to 0. Oh. I'm going to be a little bit bad. It's going to save you some time. You do not need, square root equations, when you square both sides, you always, always, always need to verify. Because an answer could be incorrect, even though it appears to be right. We get an extraneous root. If you solve by factoring, and you don't make a mistake, obviously, your answers will always be right. So technically, there is no need to verify. I guess technically we did verify because I checked it in my head. 7 squared plus 7 was 56. Negative 8 all squared minus 8 would also be 56. You could check it if you'd like to see does it work. But I will never ask you to show a left side, right side verification unless I steal a question from somewhere where they put it in. But if I write it up myself, and I didn't steal it from somewhere else, I won't ask you to verify because both answers will work if you didn't make a mistake. If you're prone to making mistakes, you might want to check yourself just to make sure your answers work. Okay. So, we have got some difficult factoring here to do. Well, I know this has to be 3x and x if it can factor. So that part's not so bad. Now we got some mental math. And one of the best strategies in factoring is to try something, even if it doesn't work. Okay? Some of you have already probably figured out what works, so don't blurt out an answer. But what are two numbers that multiply to 28? 4 times 7, what else? 1 and 28, 2 and 14. So you have all of these possibilities. So I'm going to put one down that doesn't work. I'm going to put down, so don't write this down, I'll do it in red. It's not going to work. I'm going to show you why it doesn't work. I'm going to put 4 here and 7 here. That makes 28. How do I know this is not going to work? Look at my outside is 12x. My inside is 7x. Does 12 and 7, either by adding or subtracting, ever make 17? No. So that would tell me I know this is wrong. So now, once you find out one that is wrong, your brain will say, well, I'll try a different one. And I hope you recognize that 4 and 7 is definitely different in this situation than 7 and 4. Whoa. Why? Because now this 7 gets hit by the 3. That makes 21 on my outside. And 4 on my inside. 21 and 4, if I subtract, makes 17. So this seems like a possibility. It's not guaranteed that it will work, but we're going to try. If I need a negative 17, I would need my 21 to be negative and my 4 to be positive. So I have negative 21x plus 4x. That'll give me negative 17x. I have to do a quick check to see if everything else still works. And sure enough, I multiply it out, everything works. So now I can split it here. I have my zero product property now perfect. I have a product and it's equal to 0. Let's start with the easy one. If the second one is 0, what's x? 7. A little bit more difficult. Okay? Eventually, I'm going to tell you, you are all just going to write the answer. But temporarily, and I'm going to write it in blue because you do not need to write this down. Temporarily, you could go directly to the answer. And by the way, the answer is negative 4/3. But in your head, what you don't need to write down is you are solving this question. What if this one was equal to 0? Could I get x by itself? Could you see you can move the 4 over and have 3x equal negative 4? And then to get x by itself, you would have to divide by 3. So you can, okay, by grade 11, it is assumed you can do this mental math in your head. Don't need to show work, and you can go right to writing down x is equal to negative 4/3. But sometimes on the first time that I show that, someone's like, where'd you get that number? Well, then what you're thinking about is the blue. The blue is a little equation that we're trying to solve. That second one could be 0. What would x have to be? Move the 4 over, divide by 3, and we get negative 4/3. Hey, so some questions to try. Circle 4, 5, 6, and 7.